happy new moon. Happy new moon in Virgo. And happy Mercury retrograde being over. So we can't really scapegoat that one anymore, can we? The moon in Virgo proper, is also with the sun and Mercury, as new moons do with the sun. But with Mercury and with it leaving retrograde, what an interesting, direct, and energized way of really moving forward. And that's true with all of the energy that's present. I do very much feel like there's a very supportive air there. The communication in all of these planets, I think, is very much leading to the same goal. And obviously that looks different for different people, but bear with me. I think with Venus direct in Leo, and I think with Mars in Libra is also lending itself to this internal, with everything that we've learned, like I've said before, while Venus was in retrograde, lending itself to a calm, steady, organized way of utilizing that balance in a way that brings an abstract justice to our hearts and to the way that we're leading our lives or moving forward or seeing projects grow or setting boundaries, understanding our relationships in the world, and how it is that we're moving in the world because of the ways that we're moving in our mind. I think it is offering an intimate balance of yourself internally. However, I do think that there's a lot of people, and just what I've experienced, and a lot of things even for myself, as balanced as you can feel, there's still things that will always need kind of recalibrating or rebalancing, or that show up in greater times for some reason or another. That's how shit goes. But where you feel off balance, remind yourself not to hold that to power, and to find it more as a point of pivot, a point to pivot, which ultimately can give you more power, feed more power, and feed more integrity behind that power as well. So again, supercharged momentum, support, beautiful things. I think with that pivot, there's Uranus and Jupiter are in Taurus energy, and that very much is adding to this joint stability. But likewise, Saturn and Neptune are in Pisces energy, and that's finding this finesse in function and fluidity rather than this rigid structuring like Taurus can be, or Uranus and Jupiter can be collectively, versus individually. So with that, we're reorganizing our water, we're reorganizing our bonds, internally and externally, rather than a blind structure, rather than a blind collective structure. There are also places where things aren't in conversation, but those are the nooks and crannies of still much to say. So the contrast of other energies, other celestial bodies that aren't necessarily planets that the moon will pass, or energies that are lacking a planet in its space or what have you. Opposite of Uranus, Jupiter, and Taurus, or any of those opposite energies where there are planets, alludes for me, right now, and in everything that I'm gathering, alludes for me an imaginary instability. So oftentimes where you're looking to diagnose, look in the opposite direction, or look in an opposite place. And I know I've talked about this before. This is very true oftentimes with your body and points of pain or points of soreness or what have you. But imaginary instability, and leading that right back to, again, this offering and support for balance. I'm seeing a lot of imbalance, and I'm seeing a lot of opportunity to blame or point fingers or woe is me. And there are things that absolutely may be out of our hands, but there are absolutely things that are in our hands. and that are within our control. And those are the things that we have energetic support, but we can victimize ourselves into a pigeonhole and kind of stop ourselves from progress. We can be our own worst enemy. We can be our best saboteur. We can be our own scapegoat, or we can scapegoat the planets, but Mercury is not going to stand for that right now. Rather than understand that there's support here. There is support here. Don't hold the off-balancing to power and pivot. Find joint stability with where it is that you find contrast or conflict, ultimately. And that is a very fine-tuning or recalibrating or understanding of your heart, your mind, and your memory. Your memory fuels, too often does our memory fuel our future steps. So in a weird way, that's kind of like living cyclically in the past. So maybe, reconvene for that conversation with your heart and your mind, and discover what it is that they want to meet in the middle, and be conscious of what you can control. What we can control at all times, when there are a million terrible things that we cannot control. What we can control is your mind space. And that's, let me not sound super ableist, because I'm also mentally ill, and sometimes that's much harder to control, but it is a sacred place. It's not meant to be your torment, and where you find it is tormenting, explore and find relief. You have the support too, or you have support tucked in nooks and crannies that is waiting to be available for that. But when you control your mind space, you can control your external space. Again, those internal bonds versus, are starting to really clarify those external bonds, if that makes sense. And there are many ways in which these concepts intertwine and intermingle and dance with each other, in the way that they're spoken, and the way that they're used, and the way that they bond. I think it's a really interesting trifecta, that I am only exploring more. But okay, so with that, we will pull some cards and tap into this moon and see what's up. Oh, as my body sticks to the floor. Ow. I do like that. Okay. Much like we are hanging out and we are reading together, and like there are cards in between us, we're going to take 3 deep breaths together. I do suggest you make your presence available to that energy to pass, however it is that you choose. But I do, if we were in person, I would make you, or I would ask you to place your hands over the cards, but so that you're not touching them. So deep breath in, and on the exhale, you're going to imagine a shadow card flying into your hands or rising into your hands. But 3 deep breaths, however it is whatever makes you happy, dear. The cards are down here. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. deep breath in. And exhale. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. I think that's 3. I can't necessarily say for sure. I got lost in the feeling, which is actually very nice. It was calming. It kind of just felt like, again, finessing the fluidity. But it did feel very smooth and full of ease in that way. So strive for that. The joy of doing things, where you lose track of time and you lose how much you've done it. You know, that's ideally the joy of mantra, is you're not counting like begrudgingly for 108 chance. You know, if you like, I don't know, knitting, you're not counting every loop because you get lost in the joy of it. You know, you're not counting how long you've been dancing for. And that's a feeling that will always lead us to true rest and true joy and true excitement, and maybe even more relationships that share that as a pure experiential value. Okay. I'm glad that I'm saying all of this. I feel like this is all very hopeful, in comparison maybe to where a lot of people are at now. 6 of Wands was the first, and also arrived inverted, which is like, I've heard of the 6 of Wands resolving to victory in situations. Not heard, I've seen, I've experienced. But I do know that's an association with it generally. And it's inverted. So my first thought is failure. However, failure isn't really a thing per se. And I think maybe that's it feels like that's where you feel like you are now and what you're moving with. And that is only true because it's in your past. It is only true because it's something that you're holding on to. You're weighing yourself down with the idea or fear of failure, or, you know, the notion that winning is not an option. I don't want to say hopelessness, but gosh, have some faith in yourself, my friend. Have some faith in the depth of that and how much it can build. Don't take that struggle with you. And that's not to say that it's easy to let go of trauma, because failed relationships can be trauma. You know, failed career endeavors can be traumatizing. Like there's a lot of things that we don't feel like that we're good at. And I'm not saying this because I think I'm good at everything and I never struggle with the idea of failure. I often am brought to my knees by the idea of not being better already. However, that passes if you let it. If you hold on to it like it's the only thing that you can count on, it consumes you. But it's not the only thing that you can count on. Trust your memory then. Trust your memory then, and let your memory remind you of all of the successes, of all of the joys, of all of the bright sides, of all of the things that have gotten you to this point. Exactly. You don't have to look at yourself with this inversion. That is not you seeing yourself for what you've really gained or grown into. Nor is it wishing the best for your potential. And that is where a lot of this momentum ought to start, and will have the most momentum in starting, is when you believe it and understand it to be true. The Knight of Wands is the bottom of the deck, and I'm being very kind, but that tells me there's still a level of aggression and hostility toward yourself, toward this idea of yourself. Granted, that's not to say that is not the general zeitgeist for just about everything, because I get road rage walking because of the road rage on the street. I mean, I don't get road rage, but I'm just like, oh my gosh, people, seriously. Like, I watch people just like boil because they want to boil, really. Like, they don't even have the opportunity to have been upset. They're just already upset. And that's kind of that self-fulfilling prophecy thing, I suppose, where they're already angry. They just need something to take it out on. And that's kind of giving me that vibe. But also the abuser of this failure complex, which is internally you to yourself, or me to myself, and that I've learned that many times over. And I have gained so many more tools so that when that darkness comes, I know how to find ease in it, and find truth in it, and find a luminous clarity in it. Their frustration and the abuse, oh, that's what it was. It was also, this is funny because this has come up for me. It doesn't have to be intense or like physical. It can be something as simple as impatience, which is also why that road rage example was really perfect. Because impatience is, and I actually came to this conclusion for myself recently. Impatience can be a form of perfectionism that we hold ourselves to. When you're impatient with yourself because you are not more perfect, or this certain standard of perfection in your own eyes, you set yourself up for failure, because perfection is not really a thing. And, better is always circumstantial. So why do we get caught in those circles? And, it's not because I love being, love feeling like that. It is because I have some interesting brain stuff going on. But this isn't about me. This is about the world. But yeah, was my point. Impatience for success, it can create an unhealthy environment for soft and strong growth. Because you can have soft and strong growth. What an interesting dichotomy. Thank you, Venus and Mars. But the Knight of Cups rests underneath this as the present holder of all of this energy, and that perhaps is a more what feels like futuristic to this state of us, of you, of me, of any of us, is a memory that has persisted. This is a present state waiting to be captured, that is in the false illusion of the future. Like the ways in which they were like, oh, that'll never be possible. And then 10 years later, you're like, oh, wow, I did so much more than that. You remember when I didn't think that was possible? Do you remember when I, didn't, like, that's how every physical fitness journey starts, is I didn't think this was possible, and turns into whole other patterns. And that's the most, like, literal example, I suppose. But the dichotomy of soft and strong. This is a soft boy patriarchy. I know I've said that before. I don't know if that's actually been here, but I've said that before. This is honoring of emotions. This is not suppression. This is understanding of the things that make you tick. but not letting them consume you. This is patience to let the full picture unfold. And that is with you. And I mean, sure, yeah, also with like plot lines, maybe with relationships, maybe with projects. But whatever that be, wherever maybe we find ourselves rushing or impatient with progress, like he's resting underneath the moon with like all of these crescents sort of at his shoulders. So he exists in wholeness, but he's also caught in the glare, or you know, not caught. He like projects the sliver. So you know that's an object of perception, or that's an issue of perception, not of said character's wholeness. And that is ways in which that we can start to really speak different truths to the Six of Wands with mindfulness like that. Da, 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 da. There's a horse drinking. It's a common thing. But I've also never gotten this before. The horse is drinking on its own. And he's not like guiding it. He's very much in his own world. He's very much like meditating in his own jam. And there's that old saying, I don't know when it's from, that saying about like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't teach it to drink. Something like that. Similar to something about teaching somebody how to fish. I don't know that one, but he's not teaching this horse to drink. He's not leading this horse to water. He just is, and the horse just knows. And just is a silly word, but is it, you know, what is just and what is justifying? And like the root of that, I think really has more weight in it than we give it credit for, because we just use it all the time. And that's one of the ways that we can perhaps recalibrate our value scale of things. But this is a equal part relationship between the character and their familia. And I think that is very much a place of, maybe that's patience with other people. Maybe that's patience with other people and our boundaries with them. Maybe that's patience with ourselves and boundaries with ourselves, structure with ourselves. You know, we can't force ourselves to drink either, but we can make the circumstances right for really absorbing and ingesting that, which is so funny because that brings me back to the organized water thing, which, Google it. And maybe I'll talk about that more, actually. We'll see. One thing at a time. Final card, Eight of Pentacles. Final card for this. Eight of Pentacles. That's very much patience. It's very much sowing. That's very much a project blossoming. You yourself blossoming. But not here. Like, it doesn't blossom to see here. It's the promise of in the sky, which is, again, like I said, the support that we have rather than the scapegoat that we use them as sometimes. And that's true of the planets and astrology, and that's true of people and circumstance, and that's true of maybe ways that we sell ourselves short too. And this is not about selling short. This is about more to come, and promises of abundance, and promises of a new sunrise, and promises of, you know, heat in the sky. And it, like, even as I'm looking at this, like these levels of how, oh gosh, there, can I see myself? There we go. These levels of how these transitions are to be expected, and while they flow together, they do have very poignant and definite parts. While, the year is a great example. While the seasons blend together, they have very definite purposes and very important and independent roles in the way the trajectory of that year goes. And life is very much like that. You are very much like that. So where you find yourself rushing, careful, don't burn yourself out when you're going to need to preserve that heat as the season progresses. When you're going to want to preserve that idea of safety and comfort to rest with later. And that's not safety and comfort by necessarily the means that we would always define them as, like that's not necessarily bulk shopping. That's not necessarily like, staying and never growing. That's not what I mean. Granted, all of this means for you and other people different things. Take of it what you make of it. But my point was something about taking that. I don't know. I lost my train of thought. It does happen. It does happen. But I don't know. We'll come back to it. We're going to pull other cards because it will lead us back into that as well. I feel like this Knight of Wands is also, if we are only subject to the heat and the direction, if we are only subject to some of the emotions that I had mentioned already, it can run the risk of leading you away from what it is you desire. It will leading you away from your, innate natural desires for yourself, like your intuitive connection, your, guttural health response, your true sense of creativity and inspiration and passion. The decolonized arrows. But that is not where we are going to go. We are going to bring the Six of Wands upright and forward with the Knight of Cups is what we are going to do. Okay. Another dimension, my friends. Much like there are cards in between us, we are going to take 3 deep breaths. Deep breath in, shadow card on the exhale, drawing in all of that, which we need to know to tie this together. Take a deep breath in, and exhale. Take a deep breath in, and exhale. Take a deep breath in, and exhale. Seven of Wands, bottom of the deck, distractions. I think, because it's inverted also. I think it's distractions. I think it's expenditure. Maybe in the heat of not good enough, more, whatever the fuck, that sends us down a little bit of a mindless seeking through consumption, in some way, shape, or form. And that can be buying stupid shit off of Amazon or binge drinking. Both fit that bracket of description. And many other things in between that. But those are just examples for you. And overworking and overexertion, you know, that can feel like picking up a bunch of hobbies, but sometimes we do that as a distraction, to never have to prove to ourselves whether or not we can do something. I mean, not prove to yourself that you can or can't, but never giving ourselves the opportunity to try for fear of failing. That is very much, you know, let me just get another of that. Let me just get another of that. Let me just, you know, read this other self-help book, but never actually digest it or apply it. Let me just watch another documentary, but like never actually, you know, apply any of that information or put it into use so that it's something that sticks. You know, let me buy a bunch of random things that will make me feel high in the moment and like I'm, you know, almost there and bitch, I made it, when in reality I'm trying to fill a void. That is this Seven of Wands. Or this picking up another hobby, you know, trying another class, doing all these new firsts for the hell of it to avoid really failing hard and good at something you give a shit about. You know, you can be a first timer at a ton of things and, you know, nobody can ever fault you for that. Only you can fault yourself if you continue to never want to commit to something. Does that make sense? Continue to run from one thing or continue to distract yourself from what it is that you really want or really want to pursue or really want to engage with. Six of Spades, King of Hearts, Seven of Hearts. Oof, okay. All of that is really in commentary to the Seven of Wands. As big as that is, the Six of Spades is very much wiping away all of those illusions, clearing the air of the illusions of, you know, what are you running from? Dig into that. I have been, that's for sure. What are you trying to cleanse yourself of or get rid of or hide or whatever that is? Just go to it or like go into it and find clarity in that. And all of those things are masquerading as band-aids on some other actual need or more innate desire, more rooted desire. And that's very much this King of Hearts. Rather than just being more brains now, it won't just be more brains when there's clarity with these two and where they're planning on going. This is our 7 of Wands at the bottom of the deck. Which, I mean, again, brings me entirely back to, you know, what these contrast of energies say with this supporting or scapegoating, the power that we give to it, or whether or not we choose to pivot, and how that is a wild and deep and intense conversation, and liberating conversation between our heart and our mind, fueled by our memory. And again, this thing is coming up. Again, we have all of the support around us to really dive into these, but it will be thoroughly uncomfortable to reject it, to reject that opportunity. So, you know, you deserve to give yourself that opportunity. Support yourself in this space the way that space is. And that is our 7 of Hearts. It's funny, this card has come up for me specifically in situations, inverted, in situations where it's like, you are not okay, but it's upright. So, like, obviously, that's not the case. It's kind of the antithesis of the 6 of Wands, or like the opposite, you know, the counter statement. So it's funny that it falls upright and in the same, or like opposite, or the mirror reflection space. It's given me very alternate universe vibes, which is a great jump. That's a great way to understand the infinite possibilities that exist. And as much as, you know, if good things are possible, great bad things are possible, however it is you define good and bad, if you believe in those things. But, you know, with proof of alternate universes, like, there is a you that does not feel so defeated right now, or does not feel like you know, will never make your parents proud, or does not feel like your best friends forgot about you, or does not feel like you'll never make your dreams come true. There's an alternate universe where that dream is already fulfilled and you're the best at it. Entertain that possibility and see where that momentum can take you, because that is step 1 in starting to really recalibrate your memory and the bonds that you have with those organized thoughts, or, you know, organized bonds within your body. You are okay. You're going to be okay. We all are, at some point or another. Can't rain all the time. I love that movie. But truly, like, you deserve to tell yourself that you're safe and that it's going to be okay. You deserve to hear that. And maybe if you're not hearing it from somebody else, what a great opportunity to be your best supporter and treat yourself the way that you would treat your best friend, whether or not they're there. That's something that continues to influence the shape of my thoughts, is some things I have said to me I would never say to somebody that I cared about. So from where I was then, when I first learned that, to where I am now, things have changed wildly. And that is also exactly that kind of energy, or this, you know, jump, or this alternate universe kind of identifier cards that exist in here. So even in, you know, small scales or what have you, it is possible. the biggest and the smallest things are quite realistic, especially when it comes to your mind space. That is a thoroughly surprising part of you. So be good to it. Take care of it. Take care of you, your mind, your heart on this journey. Be gentle with your memory. It's actually a very fluid thing, despite how concrete we may think that it is. Which, again, like the ways in which that reiterates, I feel like I really could just go on and on and on and show you these patterns over and over again, but that would take all of the fun out of it for you in experiencing it. So I will leave you there with what little bits of wisdom that I have for you. Not that it's even my own wisdom, it is offered to me through this. But what was I saying? Be good to your mind, be good to your heart, be good to your memory, and accept its fluidity rather than its concreteness. Be mindful of what you give power to, and when you don't want to give it power, pivot and see where that momentum takes you. But with that, I bid you adieu, because I've got shit to do. I love you. I hope that this resonates. I hope that you take care. And, you know, if this resonates, party on. Tell your friends, tell your enemies. Because, you know, we want the, for the benefit of all beings. For the benefit of all vibes, all waves, all frequencies, all creatures, etc. Yeah. Sorry, got lost in that idea. But yes, party on. Happy new moon. And I will see you again for yet another moon reading time. That's not what I'm calling it, but I mean, it's the time and we're reading with the moon, so party on.